Hey guys, today I'm going to talk about dependency injection pattern and walk you through one of the most important concepts in building professional and enterprise level application. And then I'll quickly create a C# application and show it to you in action as well. But why dependency injection is important? Using the dependency injection or DI pattern in software development has several benefits. Here's some of the reasons you should consider using it. Loose coupling, which means your modules are independent from each other and therefore they are more reusable. So your classes are not dependent on each other. Improve testability. By using DI, you can test your classes without worrying about setting up real dependencies. For example, if you've got a class which is doing database stuff, you can test that class independently without being worried about setting up a real database or connection steering or that kind of things. Better separation of concerns, which means each class has a single responsibility. You don't mix up different responsibility and logics in one class and you don't create spaghetti code. And lastly here, easier maintenance and refactoring. So loose coupling ensures that changes to one class or component have minimal impact on others, and refactoring a class becomes safer and easier. All right, let's start with explaining a simple example. First, we do the example without dependency injection. Assume that we have a database with a table in it, student, and we have a student's records stored here. In our application, we create a database service class to allow us work with database tables, and we can use it in all other classes that we need to do something in database. We have get a student method in this class, which is getting the student number as input parameter and returns the student model object, which is a student record basically. Lastly, we have a student class which needs to fetch a student record. It has get age method to fetch a particular student's age. It creates an instance of database service class called get a student method to pull student record for student number 1, 2, 3, 4, and finally it returns its age property. In this example, we new up database service in the student class and in the get age method, and then we use the created object. This is what is called tightly coupled because it is making your student class dependent on database service class tightly. And as a result, it is not possible to test the student class independently. To recap, if you are creating instance of other classes in a class, it is a big sign for tightly coupled modules, and you better consider using DI instead. Okay, let's do this example with DI. First step to implement DI for this example is creating an interface for the database service class. The interfaces include only methods and property signatures. So in this case, we have get a student method signature in it. Next, you need to inherit your database service class from the created interface. And obviously, we need to implement this interface, which means we need to create get a student method with the determined signature in the interface and add a method body for that. Second step is setting up your dependency injection module. For example, we need to tell the DI framework if a component asks for iDatabase service, create an instance of database service class and pass it through. We do the same thing for other classes as well if we need to. HDI framework creates a container and puts the class instances into it. So you've got all required instances in the DI container. Finally, we rewrite the student class. We declare a variable from iDatabase Service Interface, then add a constructor to the class with a parameter of iDatabase service type. This parameter is injected by dependency injection framework from the DI container, and we store its value in our underscore database service global variable, so we can use it everywhere we need in this class. And lastly, in getAge method, we use underscore database service variable to call getStudent. And that's it. Now you have your student class loosely coupled. It is unit testable, and you can mock database service and test it independently. Excellent. Now let's get our hands dirty and create this example using C#. To demonstrate this example, I create a console application in Visual Studio. Do a new project, console app, next. Give it a name and location, click next. I choose .NET 8 for the framework and click create. Console applications created. We need a NuGet package for dependency injection. So go to manage NuGet packages and in browse, search for Microsoft.extensions.dependency injection and install the latest. Installation's done successfully. Now I create the student model class. And add the property that we want to have for a student model. So a student number, first name, last name, and age. Next, we add our database service interface. Let's add new item, search for interface, and give it a name, click add, and I put get a student method signature here. Save all. Now we can create our database service class. So go to add class, database service as a name, make it a public class, and we inherit that from iDatabase service interface. Okay, as you can see, we are seeing an error on the screen that we need to implement getStudent method. So when you are implementing an interface, you need to implement all methods and properties that are in that interface. So I add that method here. And as you can see, the error is gone. And we've got our database service ready. So I'm just returning a dummy student record here. Obviously, in real scenarios, you can just hook it up to Entity Framework or another ORM services to read data from a real database. Now we do the same thing for the student class. So I create an interface first for that. So add a new item and search for interface and give that iStudent name, add. I add getAge method signature here. And now we are ready to create our student class. Add class. Make it a public class again. And we implement iStudent here. As you can see, we are getting the same error that we need to implement get age. But forget that for a sec. We just add a global variable here from iDatabase service, and I add a constructor to this class and add a input parameter to the constructor from iDatabase service, and we save the value of that variable into underscore database service, which is this global variable. We can use Visual Studio to implement the interface easier. And we just add a body for this getAge method. So we are just calling the getStudent method from the database service. Okay. We are done with this class. Okay, now we go to the program class, which is the console application entry point to use the created class. So I just add an empty main method here. We also need a using for the NuGet package that we installed in the project at the beginning. So I do that. In the main method, the first thing that we need to do is setting up our DI container. So I just paste this code here and quickly go through that. We are just telling the dependency injection framework that if any classes needs iDatabase service, create a database service object and pass it through. And it's the same for iStudent. I'm using add singleton and add transient here. Add singleton means the object or the instance that is created in the DI container is valid for the application lifetime. So it doesn't get renewed. At the beginning, it creates an object of the database service, and any classes that needs that, it just passes that through. But for add transient, every time that a class requests that iStudent object or instance, it creates an object on the fly and then pass it through. So that's the difference between add singleton and add transient. And then we are building the container here. Now that we have our container ready, we can just get a student instance out of the container. So this is the method that we can use to get an instance out of the container, get service. So it's a get the iStudent service instance out of the container, and it stores it into a std variable. Then we can just call the method that we need in the student class, which is get age. And finally, we just print out the age property. And that's it. Let's just run the project. Here you go. As you can see, we've got this message on the screen. Student age is 14. That's pretty much it. If you want to access the code that I wrote in this video, you can go to the OZAP Builder YouTube channel samples repository in GitHub, and there is a folder for dependency injection demo. So I added the code there. Thanks for watching this video. If you found this video valuable, please subscribe to the channel and like the video. Thank you and bye.